My name is Isaac Akagi, postgraduate student with Coventry University, MA Terrorism, International Crime and Global Security.
Hi, my name is Mercy Kwabe, MA Terrorism, International Crime and Global Security, Coventry University.
My name is Ms. Pepo Ibiminaibim, an MA student of Terrorism, International Crime and Global Security, Coventry University.
My name is Bashir Hassan Mashi, Coventry University student studying MA International Relations.
I just want to start off by saying that the trip to Italy was actually very, very informative, and it was very exciting because we had previously taken a course on organized crime, and it was very good to finally have a field experience.
The Sicilian trip broadened my horizon, made me see things in a whole new different light. It made me gave me a new sense of direction as with regards to organized crime.
So I have got opportunity to meet with authorities from different backgrounds, such as police, flights, engineers, and NGOs.
Borsellino said, and I'd like to agree with him in terms of what he spoke about with regards to a form of cooperation, so to say, moral and cultural involvement or fight rather between the government and the citizens in terms of how to combat the mafia. I believe that the responsibility of eradicating the mafia from Italy, basically, it doesn't totally rest with that of the government. I believe that the citizens have a good and a vital role as well to play in this fight, and that reminds me rather of a quote that Martin Luther King said, which is, he who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he that performs it. He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it. The point is this: the government hasn't done enough. The people have also not done enough. And there's a lot of room for improvement on both parties.
Insieme a tante donne che avevano subito violenza da parte dei mafiosi con l'uccisione dei loro cari.
Okay, there were women coming from different associations, and even in political parties of the come si dice, i sindacati? Unions. And they wanted to support the victims of the mafia, women who lost their beloveds because they were killed by the mafia, for example.
To an extent, I actually agree with what Borsellino had to say, that the fight against the mafia is a moral one and a cultural one that involves everybody. And quite frankly, I know that the anti-mafia movement started with people coming out to say, we are not okay with this. We're not okay with paying pizzos. We're not okay to bending to the foot of the mafia. People like Liberato Grussi, who wrote a letter that was published at the front of a newspaper. Then we also had people like George Falcone and George Borsellino, who actually stood up against the mafia. So to that extent, I think I agree with him.
I agree with Borsellino's statement because, in my opinion, the people make up the state. A state is made up of people. If the state fails, that means the people have failed. Now, an example of this, the people who made a difference in Sicily, in Italy, was Peppino Impastato. Peppino stood out of the crowd. He, although was born into a mafia home, he decided that he was going to fight the mafia. He was an activist.
Peppino's mother, whose name was Felicia Bartolotta, and why? Because she refused the fact that she wanted to support his son cause. In fact, she refused to receive inside her house the family of her husband, transmitting a strong message. And she closed the house even after Peppino died. She didn't want to receive all the family from his father, because we will see today, when people died, when Peppino died, some people of his mafia family wanted to avenge him, and she said, Peppino is not part of you.
However, what Borsellino refers to as the cold repressive action cannot be overlooked in this matter. Metaphorically, the people only have knives and the mafia have guns, and we know that you cannot take knives to a gunfight. You cannot do that. So I feel like the state has more responsibility and a major role to play in the eradication of the mafia. Social contract theorists such as John Locke and J.J. Rousseau will tell you that one of the major reasons that the state was formed is because it is meant to protect the lives of people and their property. It fails to protect the lives and properties of its people, like the way they failed George Falcone and the way they failed Liberator Gucci. The people are forced to comply with the mafia.
So, which means the states must come in its own efforts to fight against these criminal groups, since it has all necessary supports and powers. So definitely it will confront the criminal groups.
The problem is the mafia model, criminal organization, system of relationships, many activities connected with the old society and essentially with the modern society. This model is winner. Cosa Nostra and other mafia are in some way in crisis, but this model is winner because the globalization is in favor of this kind of accumulation.
The NGOs is not part of the state. They are non-governmental organizations who come together and come up and try and make a difference, try and make an impact in the fight against the mafia.
Okay, women in Sicily had a major role on the struggle, on the fight against the mafia, and she wanted to underline it because they founded a movement in 1980. Come mi scusi,
Associazione delle donne siciliane per la lotta contro la mafia.
Is an association of Sicilian women for the fight against the mafia.
Now, when it comes to strategies that the state has used to tackle the mafia, I actually feel like organizations like Adio Pizzo has given the people a voice to stand against the mafia and say, we are not going to pay pizzo. Also, Gary, who is a prosecutor in Palermo, told us that with the help of Intersect, they've been able to gather more information about the whereabouts of these suspects, their information, personal informations, their personal communications, in order to help in the trial to prosecute them.
Well, as I told you when we went to Palermo, we're actually increasing like 100 shops per year. We've been working since 10 years. And we started with the first 100 shops. We're now almost at 1,000 shops. I know it doesn't look like a big number, but it's really a big issue, and it's really like has deep roots into people's minds.
It's not just the people that fight against the mafia. The state is also involved in the fight. One of the ways in which the state fights, according to the police officer in charge of organized crime in Sicily, is the use of surveillance cameras. They do this to actually get people, to get the mafia in the act of collecting pizzo from shop owners and from shop retailers.
with regards to how the whole issue of the mafia is being handled presently, do I think more ought to be done? Of course. I feel that there ought to be more intelligence gathering. That's one. Secondly, I feel that most of the intelligence that are being gathered today, very few are acted on. I feel that more of those reports ought to be acted on. That's two. I think that the mafia, or rather the government and the citizens basically, have underestimated the value or the influence rather of the mafia. Hence them having this very laid back approach in terms of how they handle the issues of the mafia.
The society cannot make any significant change when it comes to the issue of security of its citizens. It's only the states that can do that.
In conclusion, I think that the state is on the right track, but then I feel like they should increase the protection over their citizens so that when they want to stand up against the mafia, they know that they don't have to risk their lives in doing so.
The daily committed people are just a small minority, and that's not enough, of course. This is the reason why we're actually doing lots of projects in the schools. We're talking with children. We're trying to get them involved in this massive change. We hope it's going to happen, well, as soon as...
In conclusion, I would say, like I said before, the people make up the state. The states make up the people. If the state has failed, that means the people have failed.
I found out that the society cannot make any positive change with regard to the issue of tackling or handling the issue of criminal activities in Sicily. It's only the states that can come out and protect the citizens and their properties.
I believe that there ought to be more cooperation between the government and the private sector or the public sector. I believe that NGOs, non-governmental organizations, citizens, should come out and actively protest against this menace, which is obviously causing or hindering every form of growth and development in that country. And I believe that by doing this and the government on its own part, fulfilling its own part of the social contract, would be able to stamp out this menace for good. Thank you.